and girls, babies in your diapers. Welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius. Today we're going to talk about some very awesome stuff. We have an awesome video game to talk about, a book about muskrats, about building score point, and we have a totally awesome guest. The one, the only, the amazing Tom Ross. Tom is the General Counsel of the Home Builders Association of Central Florida and serves the chairman of the board for Lighthouse Central Florida.
Thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. And while it's correct to say that I was the chairman of the Lighthouse Central Florida, I have since retired from that position.
Well, today we're going to start off with the video game of the week, and this is going to be an auditory gem.
And now it's time for the video game of the week.
Today's video game is a Hero's Call. This game is not on the release platform. It was made by audiogames.net. This game only costs $20, but you have to have JAWS or another screen reader to be able to play it. Because of this, I decided the best way to experience the game was to watch Liam Irvin play it on YouTube. So first off, I noticed that there are no graphics in this game. So this is an audio game, but it was still very cool. They had a tutorial so that you can learn the controls and move around the map, hearing where all the doors and walls were, as well as interacting with people and things. There were adventures and lots of things you could wear for rings and armor. Then you had a lady that would not leave you alone until you decided to let her join your party. Now, when you respond to people, you can be nice, smart, or even mean to people. One thing I noticed is that the only difference is that how you treated people would affect how much bonus items you got. It would not affect the story at all. So even if you were mean to people, the story would still go as planned, but people would not give you as much stuff. I thought the sound was awesome, and it really sounded like this stuff was happening around you. I kind of wish the menu items would also sound like the people rather than the computer talk. I give a Hero's Call 9 out of 10 stars because it was very cool to play a game that was designed for use for blind video game players. But I also think that they should change the story depending if you were nice or mean to people. But some of the battles were awesome, and it was cool that these were games that everyone could enjoy and be entertained by. Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties. Contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org. CWSmithLaw.com.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
Wait, you are not Chuck.
My dad can help when people get hurt. He loves to help.
If you are ever injured at work or in a car accident, you should call my friend Chuck.
You can call him at 407-801-2667.
The website again is CWSmithLaw.com.
Offices, Orlando.
Does it actually have that much W's?
And now it's time for the book of the week, Getting to Know Nature's Children Muskrats. This book is written by Lima Dingwall. Love reads at the back of the book. Everything you ever wanted to know about muskrats. This book describes the physical characteristics, habits, and habitats of muskrats. So first off, this is an AR book and is worth 0.5 points or half a point. It is rated for 5th grade and 5th month. This is a great series about everything nature. This is an old book series, so they may be hard to find. So this is not like my normal books. This is not fiction. Instead, this is more of a resource book. Kind of like a dictionary, but instead it's all about muskrats. So if you want to know anything about muskrats, this is the book to read. So one thing I thought was really cool is that muskrats tunnel under the ground in zigzags. I learned that they are only found in North America and that they do not hibernate. I also learned that they are great swimmers. And I won't tell you everything, but this is a great resource if you wanted to know how they build their homes or how they keep busy in the winter. You can also learn why they work underwater and how long they can stay underwater in one sitting. They eat freshwater mussels and clams and even frogs. I give getting to know nature children muskrats 9 out of 10 stars because I enjoyed learning everything I ever wanted to know about muskrats. I liked learning that they stay in the water most of the time and that as a baby they were see-through. I think anyone that wants to know more about muskrats should read this book.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of our awesome sponsors, SludChannelUS.com. These guys are very, very cool. They bring 21st century surface drainage solutions to reality. They can do corporate and government work. These are the guys that make roads and bridges safe in the rain. You can see all about them at SludChannelUS.com. That website again is SludChannelUS.com. The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of our dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom Braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering, to trophies and awards. They can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373.
And now it's time for an interview of an interesting person. Today's class is going to be so much fun. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Tom Ross. Tom is the General Counsel of the Home Builders Association of Central Florida.
Thank you, Tiberius. It's nice to be here, and I've been looking forward to our discussion today.
So first off, how are you enjoying being on the show?
Well, I think it's very nice. It's certainly an unusual experience, for sure, and I'm having to learn to compete with a 7-year-old, and it looks like I'm losing.
So to jump right in, my dad has known you for many years as a lawyer. So then you worked with Casey from Lighthouse Central Florida. Can you share with my listeners your story?
Well, Casey is a blind man who has been blind for a long time, but he has learned how to work with that handicap. He now is an instructor at Lighthouse Central Florida. So when I lost my sight, it was natural for me to go to Lighthouse to learn how to deal with living in the dark. And one of the people who helped me do that was Casey Matthews.
So you are blind. Do you have super hearing like a superhero?
No, I don't have super hearing. But what does happen is this. When you are sighted, you learn to prioritize your senses to the circumstance. So when you're growing up and learning how to deal with traffic, your parents would say to you, now when you cross the street, Tommy, be sure to look both ways. They didn't say listen both ways. They said look both ways. When you lose your sight, you don't look both ways anymore. You listen both ways. And so what happens is that your ears don't get better, but your brain gets better in that it can focus on other senses. The senses don't change. It's just the ability to interpret what you hear or feel is what changes.
Now, I have known you most of my life and knew that you were the guy with the talking computer.
Yes.
Does that make it easier to get work done faster?
Well, since most people who have a computer have a screen, and they look at that screen, and they also have a mouse with a cursor on it. And the modern computer is an interface between what's going on inside the computer, shown on the screen, and then the operator of that computer, you, me, moves the mouse around and gives the computer instructions. A blind person can't use a mouse, can't see the screen, and can't see the cursor. So we have to rely upon a computer program called JAWS. And JAWS reads the digital information on the computer and turns that digital information into sound, the English language. JAWS is in many languages. You can get JAWS in German or French or Chinese or Arabic. Any number of other languages will work with JAWS, but obviously I use English, and that's how I work my computer.
Wow. So, what's the favorite technology that you learned about at Lighthouse Central Florida?
Well, I think the favorite ends up being also the one that has been the most necessary for me to continue to serve as a practicing professional, and that had to be the computer and the utilization of the JAWS program and how to adapt that program to the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. The other thing that I think is critically important is you learn what's called mobility. I'm always in the dark. If you can imagine yourself in the most extreme dark room you've ever been in, you can't see anything. There's no light anywhere. Now, how are you going to walk upstairs, go downstairs, operate the shower, get food out of the refrigerator, cook food, and do all the things that watch the television set and so on? You have to learn how to adjust your body to an entirely new environment. And these mobility services were taught to me by professionals at Lighthouse Central Florida.
Okay, so what is the best part about being a lawyer?
One of the things that is a fact of life in our current society is the enormous amount of regulation and laws that all of us have to deal with. And for someone who is not familiar with these regulations and how they work, where they come from, what they mean, it can be a pretty daunting and challenging task. I find that with my legal experience and training, these items of regulation are not so much challenging, and they're certainly not frightening for me, and I'm not intimidated by them. So I would say that it really has helped me engage in the day-to-day activities of a professional in a very modern, very technical, very commercial world, and that law degree has had enormous applications in many of the things that I have done since graduating from law school.
Wow. Okay, so what is the hardest part about being a lawyer?
Dealing with impossible clients. From time to time, a client will come into your office that is uncooperative, is stubborn, who thinks he or she knows it all and has all the answers, is irascible, argumentative, and just a real difficult person to live with. Now, as a lawyer, if you accept the representation of that client, you owe them what's known as a fiduciary duty. You have to treat them with respect, and you have to treat them with trust, and you have to treat them with extreme care and deference. And there have been times when I have found that to be quite difficult.
Okay, so what is the hardest part about being a blind lawyer?
I think that most people are very nervous around blind people. They're uncomfortable. They don't know how to deal with that blind person, and they're nervous about saying something that might be offensive to the blind person. For example, when you meet someone and shake their hands, you say, "Glad to see you." Nice to see you again. Though the word see is put into that sentence, but of course I don't see a thing. And there are a lot of circumstances in normal conversation where there's an assumption built into the language and our culture that assumes that everybody has perfect vision and is equally able to adapt to what's going on around them. So I have found that many times I have to make an extra effort to show the other person who is sighted that I'm not nervous about, I'm not sensitive about, I'm not going to get upset about if someone mentions or talks or even asks about my blindness. Many, many times people are curious. How did you lose your sight? Have you always been blind? And they're afraid to ask that question. I don't mind that question. Of course, it's a very normal question, and I expect to answer it, and I'm glad to answer it. But it is important that I do whatever I can to put the other person at ease about my blindness. The only thing that's different between me and you and me and your dad and me and my wife is that you guys can see and I can't. My brain still works, my taste buds still work, my ears still work. I still like to go to movies, and I do go to movies. I like to watch TV. I enjoy watching tennis matches. I play golf. I do awful lot of things that normal people do. And if people would just simply learn to accept the fact of my blindness, they would be more comfortable far quicker.
So what advice would you give my listeners if they wanted to grow up to be a lawyer?
I'm not sure I would advise a young person to be a lawyer today. When I was coming up, lawyers occupied a fairly special position in our community, and there was an element of respect that was afforded to them. You didn't go to your lawyer, just like you don't go to your doctor, until you needed help. And so when you had a problem that was a legal problem, the attitude of the lawyer that was willing to come and help you put that relationship in a pretty special category. Also, when I started law, making lots of money as a lawyer was not as important as being a good lawyer and having pride in the quality of what you did and the intellectual integrity of what you had to say. And I don't know that kind of philosophy is still around today. Perhaps in the smaller law firms it still is. So I'm not sure I'm much of an advocate for young people to be involved in the law these days.
Oh, my teacher says that I use math every day when I grow up. Do you use math when you are at work?
Do I use math?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I did. My undergraduate degree before I went to law school was in physics. And so I used an awful lot of mathematics and physics and in chemistry and in optics and electronics and so on. And I thought that once I left the physics labs and went to work as a lawyer that I would never see math again. But I actually found that I used it a lot. Didn't use it so much in terms of mathematical activity as much as I used it in terms of analyzing problems and trying to move from a complex set of facts to an organized effort at attacking those facts and trying to bring them to a successful conclusion, which is what one does in mathematics. So I use the format and the philosophy of math, but not necessarily the specific mechanics of math.
Is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you?
Well, before I lost my sight, I loved to snow ski. And I used to really enjoy going out west in Colorado and going to Europe or Canada to get up on a nice high slope someplace and go down that slope just as fast and as fun as I possibly could.
Wow.
And I tried doing it. I did do it for a while. I did ski for a while after I lost my sight. But I never was able to recover and do as well as I was before I lost my sight. So I miss that a great deal. But it's just one of the things that I just can't do anymore.
Wow. Okay, so what is your favorite book to read?
Well, I've always loved science fiction, and I like spy stories. So those are my two favorite genres that I like to work from, or used to like to work from. I read a lot more nonfiction stuff today, history stuff and the like. But I would say that within the science fiction genre, I like the Dune series. I like the Asimov books a great deal, and I like the iRobot series of books a great deal.
Okay, so what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
You forgot to ask me if I was married.
Are you married?
Yes, I am married. I'm married to this lady that's sitting right here on my left. She is a beautiful lady in both heart and body, and we have now been married for 30 years. We're in our 31st year of marriage. Both of us are what are called retreads. Each of us were married before and got divorced and then met each other and got married, and we've been married for quite some time. And we just celebrated our 30th anniversary by going to London to watch the Wimbledon tennis tournament, the most famous tennis tournament in the world. Had a great time.
Wow. Thank you so much, Tom, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for math quiz?
I'll be glad to stick around. Tiberius, it's always nice to be with you.
Mid-State Fire has been providing top-quality fire equipment services for 3 generations to the Central Florida area. Don't wait for an emergency to repair. Call Mid-State Fire today at 407-246-8855. Get your fire extinguishers and emergency lighting for both your home and businesses by visiting www.midstatefire.com. That number again is 407-246-8855. The Tiberius Show would like to thank Boggy Creek Airboat Adventures for being one of our sponsors. I got to go on an airboat and saw a real gator. I even got to go to the gem mine and mine for some gems. We ate a steak dinner at the restaurant and even got some gator bites. If you want to have a blast with the entire family, I suggest you go to www.bcairboats.com right now. Get your tickets today. The website again is bcairboats.com. Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
Get ready, it's time for the Bowling Score Report!
So I got to go to the state tournament this week, and I got a 83, a 88, and a 123 in the final game. It was fun to play with Mia, Emalu, and Kyle. We did pretty good. This was out of town and next to a place that had pinball. After the games, we went to play a little pinball before going home. Now, I need to get ready for the new Winter League. So, if you want to go bowling with me, be sure to join at the new Winter League at Boardwalk Bowling Saturdays at 10 a.m. in the morning. morning, bro.
That 120 score is terrific.
Thank you.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And now it's time for Math Corners. Thank you so much, Tom, for your help with Math Corners. Today, we're going to talk about a mixed fraction and turning it into an improper fraction. So, I've been doing my IXL.com math exercises, and we got into a number of problems that had to do with mixed fractions. So, this week we are talking about how to make a mixed number like 2 1/4 and converting it into an improper fraction. So, an improper fraction is a fraction that is greater than 1, so it represents a larger than a whole. So, first off, you have to look at the mixed fraction 2 1/4. And then you have to multiply the whole number by its denominator. So 2 times 4 is 8. So then you have to add the numerator. So 8 plus 1 is 9. So that means the numerator of the answer. Then the denominator stays the same. So the answer would be 9/4. So this is a great way to get a number ready to do other operations to it. So Tom, do you just see or use a lot of fraction in practicing law?
No, not really. Not many fractions get used in practicing law.
So, thank you so much, Tom, for your help with the Math Corners.
I didn't help very much, but I certainly appreciate it because I remember learning this when I was your age.
And now it's time for Heart of a Lion. We, the Tiberius Show, like living with the heart of a lion. Living with the heart of a lion stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility.
This week, we're going to talk about leadership. For me, I think leadership is the act of living what is good, and self-control, and being disciplined. The qualities of leadership are providing guidance and direction, organization, and being a positive influence on others. I saw leadership with Casey Matthews, your instructor. He helps me research the video game of the week and provide the direction to how to express what it's like to play games as a blind person. This is providing a positive influence on others and spreading awareness about being blind and the tools used to make life better. So Tom, did you see or use leadership at all this week?
I think the answer is yes. But I add another ingredient to leadership. And that I think leadership has a feature of loyalty that goes along with it. And it's a street that has two ends to it. The leader should be loyal to those who are in the group that the leader is the leader of. And those that are within that group should also show loyalty to the leader. And that reciprocal, that exchange of loyalty is the glue that keeps groups together sometimes and helps them get through together tough times or difficult times, because everybody knows that they're all on the same team, all trying for the same goal, and the loyalty is a reciprocal kind of emotion and ingredient.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Tom Ross for being my special guest this week. It has been so much fun talking with you today, and I hope to learn more about the law and blind awareness in the future.
Well, thank you so much, Tiberius. It's been nice to be with you as well, and I am sure that you will, over time, take leadership in whatever you decide to be your area of interest.
And be sure to listen to us next week on the Tiberius Show. Tiberius! Boom!
The Tiberius Show is not filmed in front of a live studio audience. Executive producer Joseph Boy. Production editor Pierre Laguerre. Green Room manager Danny Boy. Broadcast associate James Smith. And your program host, Tiberius Boy. The Tiberius Show is copyright 2018.